Well, hello everyone, and welcome to our day session where we celebrate Global Accessibility Awareness Day and we discuss the important points of taking action on digital accessibility in 2026. So let's start with a round of introductions. Chris, shall we start with your good self there, please?
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Mike. Of course, it's an absolute pleasure to be here today. So welcome, everybody. I'm Chris Holloway. I'm the head of accessibility for ReciteMe. I am a white male. I've got short brown hair and actually need a shave, come to think of it. I should have done that before we joined in the webinar, but I'm creeping up to 40 and really looking forward to catching up with Ross and the rest of you today.
Yes, I'm white male, long hair. And I was thinking, Chris, if you need a shave, I definitely need a shave because I've got significantly more facial hair than Chris. Mid-40s, ticking on to closer to 50 than what I am 40. So I'm not very happy in that sense.
Ross, thank you. My name is Michael Halpin. I'm head of marketing here at ReciteMe, white male and brown spiky hair. Perfect. Right, before we dive in, I'd like starting with a poll to try and get some interaction with everyone. So if we push up our first poll, that would be fab, please. Perfect. So where would you say your organization is on its digital accessibility journey? Have we just started the conversation? Are we aware of what needs to be done, but we haven't taken action? We've actually started making improvements. It's part of ongoing projects, which was fantastic, or we're at a stage of, the golden star, if you like, of a mature program where we have governance and monitoring. Whereabouts is everyone at in this lovely journey?
Am I allowed to answer that one as well, Michael?
Yeah, everyone, yeah.
As long as it's the right answer, Chris.
Okay.
So I think the best part of that is perfect. No one's just starting the conversation. So we've got the right people in the room, which is great. And accessibility is a part of the ongoing projects, which is great to see. We're all here for the right reasons and we know we want to take action and move forward. And also people are starting that journey, which is fantastic. Okey-dokey. So we know where we are on the journey. I think what we're best to start off is, Ross, are you able to set a scene for us? Obviously, who is Recite, why we exist, and more importantly, why is GAD and this industry so important to us?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I should give a background on how I become passionate about this space and why I started Recite. My own experience is that I was actually diagnosed with dyslexia straight after university. I was actually president of the student union, and I turned around and looked and realized that a lot of my life was based around, a lot of the hardship was based around the fact that I was actually dyslexic all the way through it. So I wanted to set up a company that would basically help me and help other people get over this fact. So we're part campaigning organization, but we're also a technological driven organization. And the part of this is to try and drive change within the sector. We founded in 2019 on the fact that when I found out I was dyslexic, I knew there was legislation there, but I also kind of started speaking to people to what people were doing about online accessibility and what were they doing to make their websites accessible to people like myself. And generally people didn't have an idea, but they didn't have a plan. So I set this up to basically campaign and to get people thinking about the fact that they need to make the website and the online information accessible. And if you just look at some of the statistics, 1 in 4 people have a disability. But if you take on top of that, people who struggle to access information from, age-related issues and also English as a second language, the need, particularly within Western organizations, is actually really, really high, that they need some sort of help with regards to either customization that's right for them or to make the website accessible so software can interact with that website. So I'm going to pass you on to Chris now, and he'll take you through what specifically requirements that you have and what WCAG means and what all the regulations mean in practice.
Brilliant. Thanks, Ross. I think for us as well, particularly in the industry, just demonstrates just how important I think innovation is. as well as being part of that journey. So yeah, I think I always look back at your story, Ross, kind of that feeds into some of the things that probably most of us are kind of thinking. In terms of the regulations, what a year. I mean, if you look at some of the things that have come in throughout the year, so we've got obviously EAA as a good example. You've had some differences where the ADA has been pushed back, so we'll cover that in a second. But we've also seen quite a lot of innovation in the space, particularly around the use of AI, confidence that are built in how we're using AI as well, but also just that good practice. So I think if we're looking at the regulations, hopefully you feel this as well. So feel free to pop this in the chat if you feel the same. But accessibility has really shifted over the last couple of years, particularly from just being good practice and people seeing accessibility as being kind of a one-off, up to something that is an ongoing journey, something that we should be embedding into every process. I think from my experience, from what I've seen over the past year at least, I've seen more conversations happening around people doing that and organizations really bringing that into their processes. So I think at the moment we're looking at regulations being more measurable. There's been a huge focus on evidence-based things like evidence-based testing, or sort of demonstrating that you're having real-world testers coming in and really helping with making your platforms more accessible and more inclusive. We've also had a big push from this not just being about public sector organizations. There's been conversations now that are far pushing that through into public and private spaces as well. So a good example is potentially some global brands. We're talking about education, e-commerce platforms. There's a lot more e-commerce platforms, particularly in Europe, that wouldn't actually have probably had too much to do with accessibility, but now it's actually part of EAA, for example, and some of the other regulations. We also had healthcare services. I've had a lot of conversations this year with media, which has been amazing. And also I think there's that kind of financial sector as well. So there's a lot more people having different conversations with different things. So if you think about those heavier regulations that are looking at public sectors, you tend to find it's quite informational. There's a lot of transactional things there. Take that forwards to making sure that e-commerce is accessible, not just on a device, but on your mobile, different screen sizes, but also, bringing that into some of the services that you're providing as well, and making sure that staff have training as they go through this. So I think as we go through this, I think one of the things that I have seen lose a little bit of traction, and this is something I hope the industry picks up on, and obviously organizations, is remember accessibility. It's about people. Okay, so we mustn't lose sight of the fact that accessibility is there to make sure that people can use services and buy products. Just going back into kind of some of the regulations here. So the UK, we've had the Public Sector Bodies Accessibility Regulation, or PS Bar 2018. That's been sort of really picking up with government digital services, really checking in and making sure that these public sectors are being held accountable. We've also seen some really good progress there in terms of organizations stepping up and taking the opportunities to perhaps learn about accessibility and incorporate that into what their design systems are doing. We've also got the Equalities Act of 2010. So those that haven't come across that before, it's there to protect protected characteristics such as disability, race, ethnicity. The bit that really plays from the Equalities Act of 2010 is where it brings in reasonable adjustments or reasonable accommodations. And again, that doesn't just mean that that's an organization making a reasonable adjustment for staff, which is absolutely what we should be doing, but it's also about making sure that services that you're selling out to public are also meeting those regulations as well. So you've got adjustments, for example, with people entering buildings, or perhaps trying to find you on your website. Is just making sure that those equality pieces are coming in for your staff and your clients and customers too. I think probably most of my focus this year, from what I've seen, has been The EAA, so the European Accessibility Act, which I believe it came in June 2025. A double check on that one a minute. June 2025. That obviously it mandates consumer electronics, which is a big addition. And I know throughout the year, I've had conversations about kiosks, ticketing machines, digital services, but also making sure that they're not just accessible, but they're actually usable as well through the EAA regulations. So I think for us, there's plenty to do there. If you are an organization selling into a European state or a European entity, then obviously that applies for you. So even if you're in the US, for example, and you're selling services or products into European territory, that would bring you into that conversation, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
So I think the last one I've got on here is the United States. So I think there was a huge piece about a shift on the timelines for Title II. So ADA, so Americans with Disability Act, we obviously were expecting the Title II to come in. It's been passed now. However, that's been pushed, like we said, back to April. So for larger organizations, that is 2027. Smaller organizations, April 2028. So I think that kind of, for us, that really cemented that we really shouldn't be slowing down. I think that's the core message, and EAA really helps with promoting this. But I would say just because the roads got slightly longer, it doesn't mean that we should slow down or perhaps change direction. I think it's really important that we keep going with making sure that we're ADA compliant. I think the big thing there, and obviously Ross, you probably agree there, is in terms of sometimes the technology is not quite up to where we need it to be, and I hope this year gives everybody a really good opportunity to kind of home in, improve some of those opportunities, and make sure that they're kind of working for us.
Yeah.
Is there anything that Ross you would say in that position?
Yeah, it's something that I said. Like, one of the things I realized when I set up the company is that I've done a quick calculation, and to make the world accessible, it would be more expensive using just humans than the whole world's defense budget combined, which obviously isn't going to happen for financial reasons. That's why technology needs to be interwoven. And the fact that the DOJ, I think, recognized that and put it back by a year, it kind of signals what a lot of us are saying. It's not about perfection, it's about proportion. You know, what can you proportionally do in the time period and the money that you have and the size of your organization? And I think the US realized that and kind of just give somebody a bit more time, and also more time for a lot of the emerging technologies that have blown our own trumpet, that we are kind of leading in many areas, to just mature and people to be aware of that there is technological help as well as human help to help people be accessible in a quicker way than what it was in the past. But I was trying to make sure I'm not going to talk about our products, because this isn't about that, so I'll be quiet now.
No, but it's a really good, just a good example, isn't it? That everybody's doing the same thing at the moment. We're all trying to obviously make sure that technology catches up, but also really singing about some of those areas that we have seen some massive leaps forward. And I think that although the deadline shifted, it did push a lot of organizations to really start really thinking about this. So hopefully that year gives everybody an opportunity to really ground it in and do it properly. I think that's the message.
Yeah, I think particularly in the US, there was a lot of worries about PDF, and there was some organizations that had 60, 70,000 PDFs on their page. Some of them had up to 1 million pages inside one PDF, and it was like, how do we make these accessible? And the technology's coming out to use technology like ours to help make PDFs accessible. So we can do volume in the same way as you couldn't do 6 months ago. And you know, the proportionality come from the legislators at that point to give people time to be able to recognize this.
Brilliant. It's also given an opportunity for people in organizations that wouldn't normally have been around accessibility. So for example, we've got an accessibility team over here. We've got product team over there that perhaps done a bit of accessibility. We've got a UX team, design team, quite well versed. They've seen accessibility done. It's part of what they've done for many years. When you start bringing other parts of an organization, so for example, a brand team, or somebody that's doing document production, your front of house staff that are serving out, information going through. That's when we start to see that shift, isn't it? So I think probably the conversations I've had, particularly over the last year, have been with a very different audience of people that perhaps have just come across accessibility for the first time. And actually now with that move of the deadline, particularly for DOJ, I think that's going to give people a little bit of time to perhaps catch up.
But it goes back to what you said when you started the conversation, was it's not about just a tick box or meeting regulations, it's about people. And everything you've described there is kind of baking the accessibility concept into people. So every person that's front of house and designing the documents, a part of the brand team, that's technically outside of maybe the core accessibility team within organizations. It's about them. It's about them understanding accessibility and it being a concerted team effort across a company.
Brilliant. I think that's exciting, isn't it? I think the conversations we've had, teams that come across this for the first time and it's an opportunity for them to get involved, it's just brought another wave of excitement into some of these organizations where perhaps some of the accessibility teams aren't quite feeling as lonely, which is great. So I think hopefully we can carry that on.
I mean, I did reveal my age, so I was just about to joke and say I'm not going to reveal my age here, but I've already done that. Is that part of the reason, the passion why I started this, is because, I mean, you remember these days, Chris, is that often there wasn't even an accessibility team inside. So it was very rare in the early days we'd ever deal with an accessibility team. We'd deal with like the marketing directors or somebody in IT that would really understand it, often because they had somebody like a dyslexic son or daughter or something that had a personal connection. And it's fantastic to see the leaps. And the leaps are, there's an accessibility team in a lot of places now, most places, but not just the accessibility team understand accessibility. The wider team that now get the concept that they need to do something about it. And it is fantastic to see the transformation. We've moved a long way in the last 10 years.
Brilliant. I think last point from me, I think just going back to that kind of diverse thinking as well. What happens to products when you have more people from a more diverse background feeding into them? And I think that's what we've seen, particularly, isn't it? As we've opened the doors up to have more teams that are able to deal with accessibility, be part of that conversation. I think we've learned a lot that's been able to go directly into our products purely because we've got a different audience, which is fab. So yeah, I think it's all to play for. It's really good.
Absolutely. And it mirrors almost like having a diverse audience on a board. It's been proven that a diverse audience or diverse members at a board level makes better decisions, and a diverse membership of a product team or a brand team also makes better decisions, and the products get better.
Absolutely.
Cool. So should we ask the audience another question? We've gone down a perfect rabbit hole there to help everyone understand the landscape. So one of the questions we wanted to ask is, how confident is people in understanding their organization's accessibility obligations? Do they understand what levers or what criteria against who they work for means what they have to do? Obviously, it's an exciting part of the conversation that we're going to have, Ross and Chris. But I would like to see where people feel they're at with that.
That's a big question as well, Michael, isn't it? Because you've got complexities of trying to learn what your estate looks like, then also learning about your staff as well, because they're interested in accessibility, and then bring that into do you know where you're supposed to stand with that? I think big question, isn't it?
Yeah. I think we've got the best audience ever here. Feels like everyone knows what they're doing, which is awesome. So we've got a good proportion of people of confident what they need to do. So hopefully the reassurance piece for everyone is that they're on the right path, and something that we can all resonate with in the next part of this conversation.
Quick one, Mike, as well. We had a 4% on there of people that didn't know where to start. That is absolutely fine. Okay, so I think for us is, if you don't know where to start, reach out. We can perhaps help you with even just some direction. Okay, so just
Yeah, and
still
there's a lot of
local
things
for
we can
you.
do for free as well that won't cost
Yeah.
people, but we'll be able to get them demonstrating that they have made, some progress and they've got a plan with regards to it.
Ross, do you want to explain to us sort of like what it really means for organisations in practice? What could the approach be for this? And I'll share my
Yeah,
screen.
absolutely. When you talk when you talk about accessibility, I want to talk about access to computers, because today I've just found out that if you have do not disturb on your phone or your computer, if somebody calls you through WhatsApp, they still end up calling. So that's what happened at the start of my presentation. So I apologize if I was slightly distracted. But yeah, there's 2 to 3 points I want to make here. Is that the first point is you can't do nothing. With the way today's legislation is built, right, inaction is completely and utterly indefensible. Particularly, like those who just don't know what to do, reach out to us. There's a lot of stuff that we can do. We can help you with that. It's absolutely at no cost, and it'll allow you to demonstrate that you are making some progress and you are thinking about it, and what you're doing it is proportional and evidenced. But also as well, one of the things we've tried to push is that proportionate action. You can't do everything, and the regulations kind of are built for that. It's about doing what's proportionate for you and your organization, and trying to push it as far as you can, but also kind of evidencing and I'm making a big deal of evidencing here, your progress, and marking an audit trail of things that you have done, what you've considered, and what you've updated with regards to changes that you've made to make your organization and your information more accessible. But you do need to act, and you need to build a documented progress, as I mentioned. And now I'll pass on to Chris, and he will take you through like what a documented accessibility progress actually means in real life.
Sure. So everything we're covering, we actually do this internally as well. So I'll give you a good example before I dive into the meat of it. Is every week when I have a catch up with my team, we have a celebrations board between us, and what we do is we look at where we've improved the accessibility across the firm. It's super easy. It doesn't cost anything to do that, apart from a little bit of time and just, a slide in front of you. It's an opportunity for us. We look at that as growth. We look at me being able to see where my team have been involved, and also going back out to the wider Recite Me teams, and just helping them celebrate progress as well. So I think a lot of these things you can do, they don't cost a huge amount. Now, documenting accessibility processes, now they can seem quite scary, if I'm honest with you. When you look at them from the outside, it's like, where do I start with that? I think the first thing is, like I said earlier, is accessibility is not a one-off project. Okay, so I know there was a lot of potential clients, a lot of organizations that were getting funding for an accessibility project, and then once the funding finishes, they didn't really have anywhere else to go. So I think my first starting point is, if you're looking at that first initial thing and you're looking at a documented process, have it really early on from your leadership teams that you've got senior sponsorship, that this is an ongoing project. It's a journey. You're going to go through that with, there's going to be some investment, but start to record that, because what you will start to see is that initial investment that came forward as an accessibility project. If you're doing it continually, you'll start to see, if you record it correctly, that cost reduce. Okay, so you'll see things going through there. So that's, if I'm looking at return on investment, if I'm looking at a way to kind of justify why we're doing accessibility, if you're doing accessibility right and you've got it in the process, your costs are going to go down, because you're not going to have to rework any of the projects that you're on. Remediation costs start to become a lot less if you start to shift left and fix things earlier on in the process. You're not going to have to rehash them later. Now, if you're recording all those things, so for example, continual accessibility barriers, so the same accessibility barrier being reintroduced again and again and again. Okay, so it gets fixed, costs you money to do that, goes back out into the wild, into your product, you do a product launch, and the product issues back there again, and you've impacted a person with a disability, or perhaps using assistive technologies from using your services. So it's really important that you start recording those reoccurring issues, because when you look at the ADA and you look at EAA, they are specifically saying, how are you continually improving your accessibility journey here? Okay, and if you're not recording those consistent issues that are coming through and fixes that are being placed in, at that point you're really struggling with recording. So things that I would look at recording is how many times people have come to the resources internally, or perhaps asked for help and assistance through. If you've got an ADA coordinator, that's fantastic. If you haven't, try and work out where your first step is. So for me, an accessibility email address is a really good starting point for helping you record some of those issues coming in, or those barriers. I think also as well, you want to obviously have proof of your audits, ongoing accessibility auditing. That's both automatically audited through, for example, our checker tool, or having some manual auditing done as well, and actually improving it and recording when you had it done, what the issues were, what you're going to do to fix it, and when you're going to fix it. Okay, so it's kind of going through that journey of that process. Not an easy thing to embed, I'll be genuinely honest, because sometimes trying to line all those things up can be quite difficult. Again, the importance of having that leadership, that high-level leadership buy-in, or that sponsorship to help you with coordinating and spending the time doing it is really important. So I think what we look at is the next biggest hurdle. You've got a massive portfolio of websites. Where on earth do you start with that? Okay, so you might have, like Michael said, millions of PDFs. You might have 5 different websites that have all got different third parties or external vendors that are creating for you. Some of them might be externally, some of them might be internal. So I think the first starting point is to list all of your organization's processes, but also the websites that sit under them. Okay, so you've got a really good understanding of what they are. And be really open and honest with it, because it can be quite scary sometimes. So list everything you've got, get them all out there so that people know. Assign some sponsorship and also ownership of those, so you know who deals with what, so it's not going to be a surprise to them. And then what I would do is I start with looking at what ones are going to really cause a barrier to someone with a disability using your services. So if you've got anything that has, for example, an application form or something that's time sensitive, when you start going through recording all of that, it makes it a lot easier. Okay, so I think for this really regular structured monitoring, start to get your scans in, start to look at your accessibility there. Also, like I said, that documented record of actions. Okay, so what you found, when you're going to fix it, clear timelines around it. Okay, and then obviously for us, it's just prioritizing some of those issues. So if you've got existing issues that you know are causing barriers to people right this second, prioritize them, get them fixed. Okay, don't just bury your head, just hold off and see if you get them in at another time. So try to get those priority issues fixed and make sure that they're really getting implemented well. And then, yeah, I think for us, we put it on here as honest accessibility statement. Be completely honest. Okay, so what you'll find is if you've got a website that is inaccessible and you decide that you're going to hide it and try and pretend that it doesn't happen, and then when somebody raises a complaint or accessibility barrier with you, you kind of just go, "That's great." That's what gets people upset and wanting to raise a complaint against you and take you through the regulatory sort of next steps. What's better is having a really transparent accessibility statement that really tells a story about where the barriers are on your site, what you're doing about it, how you're making sure that actually it's not going to continually happen, how somebody gets listened to. Okay, so when they raise an issue or a complaint, how's that going to work out? Are they going to get back to you? Are you going to make sure that everybody's okay? So really having a good, honest, transparent accessibility statement will lower your risk of litigation if that's your area, but also it just helps people. Okay, this is the thing, it's a people-focused statement. It helps people learn about your website and use your website correctly, or look for those alternatives. So I think for us, there's a few things that you can do. There are other things that you can sort of push out as well. And happy, I think we've got some resources, Michael, on that. I think we've got a toolkit. Am I correct?
Correct, yeah. We've got a guide and some toolkits that we'll come to at the end of the end of the webinar. But I think you're right. I like using the I know, Ross, you talk about the iceberg analogy. So above the waterline is your accessibility statement, and it looks all rosy in the garden, have lots of information, intent. Big thing, that red flag is it got updated 3 years ago, but that's everyone needs to watch out for that one. But soon as everyone starts looking, if you get a complaint, if under the waterline is where the hard work is, and it's not documented, it's not prioritized, it's not taken action upon, there is no evidence, that's where these issues start to occur, and that can be soon spotted with the regulations that are in place, where people need to take action, which is proportionate to the size of their organisations and what's right for their audience. But yes, we do, like Ross was saying, lots of free resources, templates, action plans, accessibility statements, generators, VPATs, all available on our site to try and get everyone talking, starting the conversations, to move forward with what they've got. I think we're at a stage now where, before we go to the Q&As, is around the key takeaways. I know everyone would like to take a little moment of gold away with them so they can be more accessible tomorrow than they are today. And I think it'd be great to hear from you on that one. Ross, what would be your takeaway for the audience to action or to do?
Oh yeah, it's probably some of what I've said. It's all about proportionate action. So what sometimes puts people off is they feel like they've got like a massive thing to do. So they've got a plan and they've got a delay, and just be proportionate, make that first step, do those small changes, evidence them. So proportionate action, small steps at a time, keep on going, make sure it's audited and it's recorded.
And Chris?
Do you know what? I think I'm going to lean on just the experience I had when I started out in this industry. Where I got the most insight from in terms of what needed to be fixed, how I was going to tackle something, was actually just talk to people. And it's amazing.
Absolutely.
It's amazing how much you can learn just by having a conversation, and just saying, well, I didn't realize that actually that's what the barrier is. I didn't understand. I still come across different types of disabilities or long-term medical conditions even now. And I sit there and think, I never knew that. And actually, when you start to talk to people, you realize just what the barriers are, how easy some of the fixes are that you can put in place. And then it's even easier because once you've made that relationship with that person and you understand them a bit more, it's even easier to perhaps connect them with some leadership and go, well, do you know what? We've got Gavin over here that, he's struggling with this. We just need some help. Can he show you where he's having the barrier? Is that okay? And a little bit of time sometimes, just by connecting some of the dots between having conversations, can really move mountains. And that's what I've found just from experience. So hopefully that's useful.
I think back to being about humans, as Ross said, it's people, that personal connection with people that have sort of experienced, like Ross and myself. That's the important thing, isn't it? Understand, listening, and then putting that back in, using technology where best placed to support that journey. Right, I think the best time now is question time. So if anyone from the audience has got some questions for Ross and Chris, I might be able to help, but not as good as the guys here. If you don't mind popping them into the chat, and we'll be able to ask away. I can see people asking about sharing the slides. Of course, we will do that as well within the email that gets sent out. But any questions from anyone?
There's usually, Michael, where we get asked what are the winning lottery numbers. I'm afraid I don't know that one. Okay, so if anybody else knows them, please let me know.
I think we must have done a good job of talking about proportionate action and what it means to think, like you said, perfection, progress over perfection, Ross. I think that is definitely...
that's a sign that we've talked too much already.
It is. Well, I'm going to share my screen, and because we've talked about help and support, I want to probably end on that one. So what we have here is Chris and his accessibility team are very kindly pulling together an accessibility clinic Chris, I think you've got maybe 4 or 5 slots left. Is that right?
Yeah, so I think with the last cut, I was a bit shocked. We got loads coming, which is great. So people are asking some really good questions in them. My team have absolutely loved running those sessions throughout today. But I think we've got about 5 slots. So if anybody's interested, by all means, I think we've got the QR code on here, and we'll share the link as well, Michael,
Yeah.
at some point. By all means, come and book some time with my team. It's a 20-minute slot. You can ask any questions related to accessibility in that time. If there's something we can help with, absolutely, we'll be there to kind of give you some guidance. So yeah, come and find us.
Perfect. And not as good, but a documented process for everyone to follow is a guide on, exactly that. What does proportionate action, what does documenting accessibility progress really look like? And that's something that you can download on our website, a link in the emails, and obviously on that QR code there.
So we do have a few questions, and I'll answer the latest one, which is you mentioned. Yeah, you mentioned it says you mentioned some PDFs. This is our biggest concern. It's taken us a lot of time to update ours and be accessible. When do you think the technology will be available to help update and check PDF documents more easily and quickly? The good news of that is that it's available straight away from us. So if you just reach out, Michael, have we got any sort of contact details that we can send out to the team?
Yeah, our website, there's a lot of information on PDF. You can actually run a PDF crawl. So to keep it short and sweet, head over to our website, put in your domain name, we'll crawl your website, let you know how many PDFs are on it, how many pages there are on it. We'll actually give you a remediated PDF for free. And what this basically gives you is the whole landscape, understand the complexity and the volume of PDFs, and then in turn a conversation to see where we can support you in that remediation journey. Chris, I know you actually use. Oh, sorry, Ross.
Yeah, I've just dropped my email address in. Anybody that wants any information on with regards to that technology or anything, just drop me a line, and then I'll signpost it to any of my team, and make sure we can help you guys.
Fantastic. Not many people get that email address, so make sure you.
Yeah, I know. I'll probably introduce myself to spam me. Yeah, because again,
I was going to say I usually use Ross's email to sign up to spam as I'm going through.
Is that why I'm getting them all? So Chris, actually, here's one for yourself. It says, "What can you do when a senior staff buy-in is not fully there?" I've got an answer that's a bit more guerrilla, but I think yours has been a bit more.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think sometimes you'll find that from experience they just don't understand, and you tend to find from a leadership perspective is they're sometimes a little bit afraid to ask as well. So I would, if I was in that position, I'd start to warm them up a little bit, just giving them some of the easy things that they can really help you with, without overloading them, and then just grow it from there. So I think for me, it's just slow but steady, get them involved, be really clear what they can help you with. Okay, so some of the things that they can help with don't take a lot of time and effort from them. Ross, I think you had another response as well.
Mine's more guerrilla and typically maverick, because I started this company by breaking the rules in the first place. I would get somebody who has accessibility issues to email the person directly.
Yeah, why not?
And then they're legally obliged to do something about it. So I'm a bit more blunt instrument, Chris.
Yeah, no, I think it's good. So you've heard the terminology of the carrot and the stick.
Yeah.
So if the carrot's not working and you're finding that you've been through everything, then it's stick time. And it's exactly what Ross has said. Look, if you're UK based, obviously you've got the Equality Act 2010 there as well, so start to use that. But yeah, I think it's carrot and stick. Obviously, don't hit people with sticks. That's don't go too far, because we'll probably
not again anyway. But yeah.
Oh, perfect. Well, I appreciate your time, Ross and Chris, on that. Like I said, plenty of resources on our website. We're here to help. Clinics, Ross's email even. Please reach out if you need anything, and we'll see you again really shortly on another topic of how to support accessibility online. Thanks everyone, and take care.
Thank you all. Appreciate everyone coming along.